It began in 1933 when I was a 9-year-old. I joined the Evanston YMCA. My dad talked the Y into allowing 9-year-olds to join. Well, we had story time. We swam in the pool, didn't need swimming suits then. I was in the Junior Leaders Club and gym with a fine physical director, Mert Kennedy. And through the years, I got to know very well Bill Schmieder, Raj Treelord, Doug Monahan, especially Red Mosier, Mert Kennedy, Bob Jones, Keith Pegg, all great guys, so that I knew, by the time I was 13, I knew that I wanted to be a YMCA director. And as it turned out, I had 21 years full-time at the Evanston YMCA as a director and 3 years part-time while I was going to Northwestern. And then I had 9 years with 4 other YMCAs. So the Evanston Y gave me that happy boyhood, the club experience from grades 6 through 12. When I went to Evanston High School, I was 5'2", 110 pounds. I was a good little athlete, but I wasn't good enough or big enough to play on the high school teams that I was interested in. So the YMCA was my hangout, and I shadowed Red Mosier. We met in the various members' homes, and we had leagues in touch football, basketball, and softball. And I was a shadow for Red Mosier. I would sit in his office many afternoons, and he'd send me out to get somebody else, and we'd have a discussion. I remember one time he had the Olympian Court of Human Relations, and we put society on trial. The boys put girls on trial, girls put boys on trial. We had democracy on trial, the churches were on trial, parents were on trial. And I was a prosecuting attorney against the parents. And I said to Red, how come I'm supposed to be against parents? I've got the best parents in the world. And he said, that's why you're in there. So I've got so many memories. I think intangibles would be the word to say what I think the Evanston Y gave me more than anything else. Friendships, fun, humor, outdoor experiences. After I graduated from high school, in high school, Frank Hoover took 5 of us on a Canadian canoe trip. And after the war, he guided a trip for us up in the Rainy Lake area of Canada. And that was one of my fondest memories, was taking Canadian canoe trips, which last year was my last year, but I was 85 by then. So I guess it was time to quit. But I sure have a lot of memories of taking, we'd have 10 boys and 2 leaders on these Canadian canoe trips, and that was a lot of fun. And of course, Brilliantine was going then, and Brilliantine is going now. In fact, my brother was in Herald Teen in 1929, and so show business has been around the Evanston YMCA for a long time. As a matter of fact, so Canadian canoe trips before my time, but sometimes things come, things go. And we went to White Sox and Cubs games and openers of Northwestern football games. Played a lot of Curel, which was croquet on a pool table. And Frank Hoover would almost always beat me on that. He would come down with the Evanston High swimming team because they didn't have a pool. They used the Y pool. And after practice, he'd beat me regularly in Curel. And then I'd beat him regularly in handball because my father taught me handball at a very young age. For the last 20 years, we've pretty well stayed to one lake, and one of my old Canadian canoe trippers, Greg Wanberg, and I stayed on West Hawk Lake. We did a lot of canoeing, and it was a beautiful lake, and we had good campsites and caught a lot of fish. He did, I paddled. And so we had a wonderful time for 20 years at West Hawk Lake. So I can't say there were canoe trips all that time, but from 1940 till 2008 is a pretty good record. I'd say I took a trip every year. Sometimes I took two, but took in a lot of trips, so I loved that. And I coached a high school handball team. That was a lot of fun. We took a lot of Colorado ski trips and a lot of Midwest ski trips. I worked with some wonderful people and the staffs, Neil Featherstone, Larry Meyer, Zeno Moore, Eileen Leonard Wasson, Barbara Dean Little. I'm probably leaving somebody out that I wouldn't want to leave out at all, but a lot of good people on staff, so I have those memories too. I think my first cabin counselor was Jim Pierce. He was a track star at the University of Illinois. He lost to Jesse Owens by about a yard. When he was at Evanston High School, he was actually the high school track coach. And when I went up to camp, I didn't have any weight to spare. And after all the track and high jumping and so forth that I did at camp, I came back losing about 10 pounds. My dad was ready to skin Camp Echo alive. Doug Monahan was a fireball, and he wasn't perfect, but suited me fine because I'm not perfect either. But Red Mosier was, we would all bow down to Red. He's in the YMCA Hall of Fame at Springfield College, and he was a great influence. But I don't say anybody took the place of my parents because they were great parents. My dad was quite a lap swimmer at the Y and a fancy diver. And he was on aquatic committee. He was a lifesaver enthusiast. And up at our cottage, he would teach kids all along the lake shore how to be a lifesaver. I think I qualified for the Junior Red Cross life-saving at about 9 or 10, but I couldn't get that 10-pound bag off the bottom of the lake. And he taught me handball, and so I had a wonderful dad and mother. Frank Hoover, he was president of the Y board at one time, and I just saw him August 15th, and we see each other for our wives, and we see each other a couple times a year, and we write and call on the phone, and he was my best man, and I was an usher at his wedding. For his wedding, I paddled a canoe across Long Lake, Camp Echo, left it at a place where you could buy pop and so forth, and then I hitchhiked, and then I rode a bus, and then I took a train, and then I took a car, ushered at his wedding, came back on the bus, went through all that again, took out a 40-mile hike to the Silver Lake sand dunes, did about 8 miles the first day and darn near died. So, you know, I just have so many memories. You can't help but have memories in all those years. When I was a boy at Camp Echo, if you didn't behave, they'd give you a paddle across the rear end and knock you through the screen door if they were on the target. So when I was a counselor at Cabin 1, I remember that if the kids misbehaved, I'd paddle them. Today, you'd have a lot of problems with that. But we had a cabin night out, a cook's night out, and it gave you a chance to talk with your kids. And so I asked them how I was doing, and they said, "You're doing fine, except we don't like that paddle." So we took the paddle and we tied a rope to it and put it around a stone block, and we took it out in the lake and sunk the paddle. And I've never touched, well, yes, I've touched a kid a few times, but I've never paddled a kid or hit him or anything like that. So, you know, when you're 14 years old, you haven't any sense anyhow. Well, you do. Maybe you do. You're closer to the 9-year-olds. I took a lot of Pine River canoe trips out and taught softball. I was a waterfront director one year. We took a beeline hike after I got out of the Army, and the main feature was going to a movie in White Cloud, I think it was, and had some ice cream and stuff that probably wasn't in the camp curriculum, but we had a lot of fun there. I think the present campfire circle is in memory of Al Butler, who's now deceased, but we had a sort of a magic fire that would spring up at powwow. It was sort of on an Indian theme then, I guess. But we had the burning of the woof. I remember if you had a woof, or you didn't like somebody, or you were mad, or you were sad about something, you told it to the stick or whatever it was and threw it in the fire to get rid of your woof. But they're all, I haven't thought about that since I was probably 10 years old, but you got me going. Oh, we did a lot of Pine River and Muskegon and Pere Marquette River trips. Taught a lot of softball. Taught some kids how to swim that were really having a hard time with it over the years. So I think the one decision I had to make was whether I was going to be a physical director or a boys director. And I figured I couldn't leave the clubs and the leagues and the meetings in the various members' homes and the Brillantine and charter services and New Year's Eve dances and ski trips and canoe trips. And so I ended up as a boys director. And then, of course, I was the associate executive of the Evanston Y for about 9 years under Doug Monahan. And my dad said he was a little steam engine with pants, and he had a lot of fire. And it was funny because if someone took his parking space, he'd go berserk. But if the attic was on fire, I'd call him up and tell him the attic's on fire at the Y. Okay, fine, I'll see you in the morning. You know, that was the way he was. He was a real character and a wonderful, wonderful boss.